can you hear me?
I can. Can you
Right.
hear me?
Yeah, no, but it's my phone. It's been a pain. Hang on. Try it now.
All right. How are we doing? Hello? Where'd Paul go?
Oh, I pressed the wrong button like a douche. There we go.
Oh,
Is that better?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I'll get by. I think it's my phone's a bit crap.
Oh. So, final countdown. Are we ready?
Right, yeah. Yeah. You've
Actually,
gone live yet?
right. I can't. I can't even upload anything. Remember? I
Oh,
spoke
right, you banned.
I spoke the hate. So, it's going to end up
Oh,
having
right.
to go up tomorrow. I think I have 1 day left on the ban. I can't even. What was the thing I saw yesterday? I don't know if I tried to comment on a video or something, but it wouldn't let me. Like there was something really innocuous that I was like, "Oh, let me just do." You know what it? No, you know what I think it was. I think I tried to add a video to like my watch later list, like save it to watch later, and I think it said no, you're under restrictions, and I was like, "What the fuck?" But yeah,
That sounds
so
more like your Google profile than YouTube, though, in
I
a way.
I don't know. I know YouTube showed me I have a strike, and it said when I hit you up the 1 day, it said 3 days left. So I don't know. Maybe it runs up today or tomorrow, but I'll have to put it up after that because I did a video I wanted to upload. I uploaded it to Facebook. It'd be the one about Maynard from Tool and Kanye West, and
Yes. Yeah.
how unimpressive Maynard is. Um. But yeah, other than that, right before when you were like, "Shall I call?" I was real quick. I was like, you know what? Let me put on the Trump hat and my Trump shirt, and then
Oh, you've
just
got it all on?
to set the tone. I do. Final
Yeah.
countdown. I'll tell you what. Did you see the pictures of the rally yesterday?
Not of yesterday's, no, but I've seen some other ones.
50,000 people. I mean,
Yeah,
like, and
is that the one with Nigel Farage? I suppose.
I don't know, but the funny thing about it is, I don't know. Are you a fan of Tim Dillon?
Don't know who he is, man.
Tim Dillon's
Not
amazing.
name.
He's a comedian, and he's really, I mean, in a lot of ways, because I'm a huge fan of his. He is like if Alex Jones was from Long Island and was a comedian
Oh, is that
rather
the
than a
dude on
news.
with Alex Jones and
Yeah, yeah,
Hulu?
he was the one on
Right.
with Rogan and them. So I've been a fan of his for a while, and he's been on InfoWars before. He does comedy. Like yesterday, he put out a sketch being like, "I'm here from the Bill Gates Foundation, and we're going to teach you how to give your kids the COVID vaccine without them knowing." And he's like, has a syringe and is injecting it into like chocolates and stuff. And he's like, "Kids see a bowl of candy. We see a safe society." You know, just this real fucked up jokes about like what's conspiracy shit. So anyway, the thing about him is though is he is a comedian. So he's not trying to take a side. He is like the purest comedian left where he will lampoon Trump, lampoon Joe Biden. Like it's just anyone can get it. Like it's not this hack shit where these comedians are like, "Oh, well I can only joke on Trump. I can't joke about Biden." This, like, and he said the best thing for the Trump presidency is it made all these fakes in my industry go insane and realize how much they suck. Like, so anyway, he's showing this one part of this Trump skit where he's going on being like, people came up to me and said I'm the most famous guy in the world, and I said, "Nope, there's one guy more famous than me. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ, he's the boss. He's number one." And like Tim Dillon is like, this is like the most fitting coda of this whole thing because in a lot of ways it's true. But his whole thing is Trump is a con artist. He's a salesman. And Tim Dillon says, I used to sell subprime mortgages. Like I was a con artist. That's how I know what it is when I see it. And he's right, because Trump's always like, it's gonna be huge, it's the biggest, greatest, most beautiful thing.
Regeneron.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
going to be in every hospital. It's the greatest. I'm not saying it's a cure to say it's a cure, but I'm cured.
yeah. It's
Regeneron.
it's the salesman.
Get your Regeneron. It's going to be the cheapest. Have it on me. It's going to be free. The greatest. These are the greatest.
Yeah.
The greatest data we've seen.
Yeah.
Regeneron.
Yeah, and it's like, so I mean,
what is it again? It's Regeneron. Say it with me. Regeneron.
Yeah, he's completely right. Like, Trump is just the greatest con artist salesman ever. And I mean, and that's not me saying he's an awful person or he's a saint. That's just me acknowledging, it's why he talks the way he talks. You gotta remember who this guy is. But the whole just him being like, capping it off with the Jesus thing and this and that, and then I see this 50,000 person crowd, and I'm like, there's no way he's losing. I don't see it happening. It just, even Sargon did a really good video about it, where he's like, the media is in this state where they're basically just going to everyone over and over and saying, don't believe your lying eyes. You'll have a Biden rally and the only people that's there is the media. Or there might be like a handful of people in these fucking painted circles on the ground, all 6 feet apart from each other, and they just use that as an excuse. But I don't know. I think he's gonna landslide. I think it's again gonna be one of these situations where it's going to be so overwhelming, there's no way to steal it. Like, and maybe that's me being hopeful and naive, but again, seeing that crowd and then just looking at the Biden thing and thinking to myself, if I didn't hear anything, if someone just went to me and said, here's candidate A, here's candidate B, these are the rallies, you'd be like, oh, well, no one supports Biden. Now, one interesting thing, there's a good 2 months, and I did a video on this guy too, where I started watching this news show, The Hill. Are you familiar with it?
Kinda, not really, but I know what it is.
I like the formula. They have this guy Sagar, who is I'm sure he'd call himself a populist conservative, and good on some issues. And then they have this girl. Oh shit, I'm completely blanking on her name. But she is a, populist, leftist, so on and so forth. So they both agree, like, everyone should have health care, government spending shouldn't be an issue. And I get that point. Tucker Carlson, I also think, is very good on this issue, where it's like, if we say the government shouldn't spend on health care for the people or universal basic income, okay, but they're still spending on all their corporate buddies. Like, you don't want to draw a line in the sand that basically fucks all the people while everyone else is still getting their handout and bailout and all of that. So I have a lot of respect that people are looking at saying, listen, we can either not play this game at all, or we need to play it both ways, where the American people get something out of this, and it's not just bankers, credit card industries, bomb makers, and everyone else that gets a handout and a bailout. But their whole thing is, well, what's popular? What's popular? The polling says, and like, they, for the past 2-3 months, have just been projecting this doom and gloom, everything is going wrong because the only thing the people care about is COVID, because the polling shows that the only thing they care about is COVID and all. And I mean, that's the thing I feel like I'm waiting for the most on.
I think I would agree with that to a degree, Dave.
Well, here's the interesting thing about it. It really makes me wonder how the questions are phrased. Because, for example, I saw this article once, and it was saying...
well, it's not just that, it's the sort of person that would take a poll in the first place. And be honest about it.
What was that?
It's the sort of person that would take a poll and wouldn't take a poll, it's also.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's all that. But I mean, I saw this article once that was like America is becoming more liberal. And I was like, "Okay, let me read through this." And it basically said, based off the polling, we found, 70% of Americans are okay with gay marriage, or 60% of them are okay with this issue, and 75% of them care about the environment. And so you're looking at this saying, "Wait, so your pretense is that the left, the liberals, monopolized environmentalism, gay marriage, this, that, and the next thing, when Trump just got into office and was hugging a rainbow flag, and the Republicans have always basically ran the conservationist movement. They're just not for all this, like it's not that black and white." So, I mean, that's why I say I wonder about the questioning of the polling, because if you ask someone, well, what's your number one concern? And they say COVID. Well, does that mean their number one concern is COVID being used to shut down businesses and lock people in their houses? Or is it fear of catching COVID? You know what I mean? So if you ask if your number one concern and you say
Yeah, it
COVID,
just sounds like cold reading. Yeah.
that could go two vastly different directions. I mean, people are concerned about COVID, but they're concerned far more about the ramifications of the reaction than catching it and dying. I mean, I had it even with my mom.
Yeah, it sounds like a cold reading question. Like when you speak to spirits, like, "Oh, Jamie, you drinking water?" And if you say yes, like, "Oh, yeah, the spirits told me you're drinking a lot more water." And if you say no, I say, "Oh, the spirits are telling me you've got some health issues. You need to drink a lot of water, Jamie, in the next couple of
Yeah. Now, it's
the
funny.
cold question. You win on both sides.
Exactly. So, and that's the thing where it's like I almost feel bad for them at that show, because I'm like, if you guys are basing your whole shtick off of what's popular, what the polling says, I mean, because that basically is like a mob rule mentality, first off, that we should just base everything off of what the masses and the polling says. Like, but besides that, quick story, my mom had a friend that basically a month ago went into the hospital, and she was, I don't know, sick with something. Part of it might have been diabetes related. I know at one point they were wondering if they were going to have to amputate her foot and all this crazy stuff. So she's been in there. My mom's been worried about it. Then my mom comes to me the one day and says, my friend tested positive for COVID. So, me being me, I was just like, oh, okay. Like, it didn't faze me, because, okay, you tested positive. Like, I know how faulty the tests are. And, like, if she came to me and she was like, they're having breathing problems, they're worried they're going to make it, like, then I'd be worried. But the test is the test. You and me both know that. So then I sent my mom some articles and I said, listen, I didn't mean to be a dick or seem like I don't care. I do care for their health. I just don't care what those tests say, and here's some articles why. So my mom said, okay, I get it, this and that. So ends up, though, because I also told my mom, look at Trump. He went to the hospital. They pumped him full of drugs. He came right out. He was, and I made this joke from, remember when we did the podcast before and you were like, look at his Twitter? And I'm like, he's sitting in a hospital bed having a campaign rally through his thumbs. Like, he is ready to take on the world. Like, they've pumped him full of steroids and all sorts of other shit. Well, sure enough, my mom comes to me a day later and she says, James, they gave my friend Regeneron and whatever else, and she said she wants out of that place so bad. She is just ready to go, this and that. Like, I mean, it's like some supercharger shit where it's like, it was just funny because I'm dismissive on the one hand, and I'm like, yeah, mom, don't worry, she's being all mopey. And next thing you know, they gave her the treatment and her friend is now back home and chilling, basically. Like, so it is one of these things where, and of course people said, oh, well, that's the medical care Trump is getting, this and that. Well, it appears average people are getting it too. So the COVID thing really needs to be over with. I'm very interested in what's going on your end, because everything I hear is very depressing.
I'm sure, don't quote, but I think Trump had some kind of weird stem cell treatment too, which was based on a plasma. What's the word? Like basically Blood transfusion.
Well,
Blood
that's what
blood transfusion.
Regeneron is. That it's at there.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, he was put on a steroid, and I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure Regeneron is the one.
That like the aborted fetus cell tissue.
That I don't know.
Medication.
See.
Well, that's what stem cell.
No, not anymore. There's different ways of doing it now.
Especially if they're talking, but if they're talking plasma based.
I see. This is the thing: is I don't even want to. What I think what I think this is based off of, because I knew someone that very early on got it, and this is why they wonder how long the effectiveness was.
Jamie.
No, they're processing the blood and the antibodies of people who have already had it. So I don't think it's even as wild and, anything like that as we're imagining. I think it's just a blood transfusion of someone who already got over the virus, and probably some tweaking in there somewhere. But there's been a lot of really crazy advances as far as stem cells and stuff like that, and they've been able to start gathering them and replicating them or doing whatever without it always being from aborted fetuses and stuff. Granted, I know there are people out there in the world, your Bill Gateses and such, who, even if there was another way to do it, I don't think they would, because there's obviously a money circle between Planned Parenthood, his vaccines, his foundation, and this and that. So some of it infrastructure-wise, but it's not as simple as stem cells equal aborted babies and this and that anymore.
Yeah, it is. I've read their data. I've read the research. It's just dead babies. It started with the Queen doing it.
It's what?
No, it's Trump. It's dead babies. It started with the Queen doing it. They used to take baths in it. In Regeneron.
Oh, the Regeneron. Well, I don't know. I know the stuff they're doing now for treatment, though, involves...
I know I wouldn't want to take it, though.
It involves...
Especially if I wasn't actually ill. Even if it does make me jump up and down with joy. And make me do somersault.
See, I don't know. I think what you're talking about is something else. Because you do obviously have these, blood transfusions for people like the Queen.
No, I just thought it's weird. It's like the Trump supporters are demanding what now? Dead baby tissue?
No, but that's what I'm saying. It's not. And this is why, let me put it to you like this. Their concern with Regeneron is how much of it can they make. Now, if it was made from dead babies, we would have no problem with it, because we got more than enough of that to go around. I'm pretty sure Regeneron is made from people, the blood transfusion. It's basically, because I know someone who had COVID, and then afterwards they were being hit up by all these groups asking for blood donations. So it's basically the plasma from people who have already had it. It's basically... you're injecting the antibodies of someone who already got COVID into... And that's why Trump, even in one of the interviews, they asked, are you going to donate your blood now? And he said, I don't know. They haven't asked this and that. So it's really more of just a basic...
But they shouldn't ask. He ain't exactly a prime candidate, is he?
No, I'm sure he has other, underlying health issues. But what you're talking about, though, is something different, and it's true. The Royals do all these, I just remember the name, hyperbaric chambers, the oxygen, treatments, getting transfused as young blood as they can get their hands on, to just sort of, all that creepy weirdo shit. And like I said, some of those systems, because like I was saying, stem cells, there are other ways to acquire them and do them. But if you're in a situation like Bill Gates, where you're vaccine manufacturing, which also uses aborted fetus cells, your family's been tied into Planned Parenthood forever. You have the Bill Gates Foundation. You have this money laundering system going on where it's like you're donating to one group, then getting a product that you're needed for your other project that then feeds
I don't want to
money
go down
into
that
the.
road, but it makes you think, shouldn't they be paying you for your blood? Because they're going to make a fortune out of this. I know it's for a good cause, but still, they're going to make so much money out
Yeah,
of this. That
yeah,
really your blood should be being paid for.
yeah. No, I agree with that. But that's also the thing where they're saying, they don't know how long it will last and this and that, which with these fucks, you just wonder if that's them saying, oh, well, you may have beat us this time, but we got a fucking vault full of other viruses we're about to hit you with.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I don't get about this election, the thing that's just been confused me for months now, is I get this idea of the ballot rigging and all this stuff, but let's just assume that the Democrats are going to do this rigging which way they can. It doesn't matter if it's ballots, doesn't matter how they want to do it. Why would they rig it in favor of Biden? Why wouldn't you rig it in favor of Trump, even though you don't want Trump to win? It would make more sense to rig it for
No,
Trump
you're
winning.
right. You're right. And the thing I was actually just going to add.
Just to explain to people listening, no one in their right mind thinks Biden can win it. So why would you rig it for Biden? You want to rig it for Trump
but
and then say, look, Trump stole it. Or
but
you got all these rigged ballots. Trump was
see,
right. I know it sounds crazy
here,
coming from the Democrats, but there is this election fraud problem. Trump was right.
yeah, but
And all these right winners that took advantage of it.
here's the thing though, that because I mean you have different things coming out. Like you have a Project Veritas video that's a woman working on behalf of a Republican, getting people to vote down ballot Democrat. Like I don't like getting too lost in the weeds of whose motives or what, because you're completely right. From one perspective, it would look far better.
No, I only got that idea because Pelosi always said that Trump's going to steal it, so you need to make it
But
look like
that's all right. So now you're on to my point. Why do anything with any ballots when you're just going to object to it anyway? That's how I honestly see it. Sorry if I'm peeking, guys. I just pulled the volume down a little. I honestly think whatever goes on
it's just
Tuesday
chaos
doesn't
in
matter.
every which way you can, isn't it? Every angle you look at is just going to be chaos in the mix.
Maybe. I mean, I see, but I think.
And that's how you contest it. It's just an absolute.
Well, because I feel like the perspective I've tried to take on a lot of these issues, and it could be a completely ass backwards way of looking at things, but I think some of these people don't really want to lift a finger, so they're going to do as little as they can while getting as much from it as they can. Like a basic investment strategy. I want to put in as little as possible and get as much back as possible. So part of me wonders then,
And also,
when people make up like grand conspiracy theories and stuff like that, where like Pelosi's having a meeting with somebody who's organizing who's grabbing the ballot. Sometimes I think they just have to feed out the talking point, and they know there's enough mentally ill people out there that will just start doing corrupt things. I mean, it even crossed my mind yesterday where I was like, the election night is going to be crazy. I could go to New York City and fucking do my Christmas shopping in the fog of war and just loot and steal, and like, if it's gonna be happening anyway, why shouldn't I get something out of it? But it's like that sort of mindset of, if they're coming out and you have Trump saying, oh well, the election is completely rigged, and then someone else is saying, no, it's completely perfect, there's never been a problem whatsoever. Well, if I'm really against Trump and I'm like, well, let me see what I can get away with then, because one side isn't expecting any problems.
Yeah, you just want to make a chaos, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's more of it than anything else, is just them fucking spouting off whatever the fuck they can muster. I mean, you look at the Steele dossier. Trump is being peed on by prostitutes in a Moscow thing, and he said, give me the room Obama hat. Like, some of it is so over the top that
and technically that was Tony Blair that did that.
It almost seems like it's more trolling than anything else, where it's like
Chatham House pretty much, didn't it?
I think so.
And that's Tony Blair. That's Tony Blair's wife.
But I mean, some of it really, it seems so crazy, so over the top, and also on the same hand, so low effort that I think they're just like, we're just gonna do whatever the fuck I mean, it's Biden's campaign strategy. I'm gonna do
That's how
whatever the
Britain
fuck I
does stuff,
want.
Jake. That's how we get stuff done.
Yeah. I
As
mean,
long as it works, it's a job done. Doesn't matter if it's dangerous or you might die in it. Like, look at our engineering. Like, most of the stuff we built falls apart.
yeah.
So it's just got to pass the basic test.
Yeah, exactly. It's
That will do.
just got to be up to bar, no higher under any circumstance. And that's how I
Yeah.
feel about a lot of the politics and like the disinfo stuff and things like that, where it's like,
If it can't be recreated in a shed, it's not being released to the public.
it's like they are just throwing at you the laziest, silliest shit, and they know that you are too dumb to even second guess it, look into it, or I mean the funniest thing is the Proud Boys thing after the election, or no, the debate, where you then had online this, segment of gay men or whatever who were like, we're the real Proud Boys. Yes, we're so proud. And then, of course, you have all the woke white women being like,
That's funny, though, to be
like, oh, this is so great. The real Proud Boys have reclaimed, this from the Nazis and everything. And it's like, and then meanwhile, it's like, here's Gavin making out with Milo in front of the Pulse nightclub saying "fuck Islam." Like, who are you responding to? Like, none of this is based in reality. But I think it's just, why would you want to even start bringing it down to reality? You've gotten it back to the con thing. You've gotten it this far off of nothing. So why start? You know what I mean? It's almost like a brazenness where it's like, but I think it's lazy too, where it's like, sometimes I wonder if they're like, what do you think we can get away with telling them this week? But then some of the times I think they're just like, all right, well, what will work? Like, what will barely get us by?
Yeah, the only thing is I think Owen Benjamin put it pretty well. I think it is true that America's problems probably aren't actually right or left at all. It probably is just as simple as, do you live in an urban environment and grew up in an urban environment, or did you grow up in a rural environment?
Oh, yeah. I say that all the time whenever people are, especially because being in New York,
it does make sense why they would go in that direction.
well, and even being in New York, it's interesting. I hung out with a friend of mine a few weeks ago for a recording session, and he also does real estate, and he noticed the same thing I noticed. The people in New York City are moving to where I'm located, because where I'm located, it's like one block could be a city, and then the next block is an apple orchard. So, I mean, I'm really in this mix where it's like, and it's really far more rural than urban. Like, there's like a 2 mile by 2 mile inner city surrounded by the Hudson Valley, which is just apple orchards.
Yeah, you know the Five Finger Lakes then? Are you anywhere near that?
I don't think so. I think that's up further in New York. It's funny, I'm considered upstate New York from New York City, but I'm very close to the bottom of New York. Like, I'm an hour from Pennsylvania. So it's a weird phraseology that makes it seem like I'm near Rochester or something like that. But anyway, but the thing he was saying is the people from our area are moving essentially to rural red states. Like, the flow of traffic only goes in one direction. Like, and maybe sometimes you have people that are born in rural areas that, long for more and more excitement. And I mean, I used to travel to New York City, and in the middle of the night when you're looking at Times Square, like, you feel that energy and electricity, but, after doing it enough times, you're just sort of like, it's fake. It doesn't last. It's not sustaining or fulfilling. Like, it's just blinking lights and advertisements. You almost look at it with the Roddy Piper They Live glasses, and you're like, oh, this is nothing. It's vapid and shallow. And, so people that are in urban areas move to more of a mix, and then from there they move to more rural. And I think it is that simple. You look at a situation like the whole COVID thing, obviously something like a contagion is going to be worse when you have people stacked on top of people into these giant high rises and everything else. Like, I don't know. Like, it you know, that really is where the stark contrast is, because there's so many problems that are projected as America's issues. You know, look at the whole race issue. Well, how come everywhere that there's a race issue just happens to be these super liberal, you know, urban cities, and you very rarely hear about it going on in the middle of nowhere because people are minding their own business. They're keeping to themselves. They're not, it's, you know, people have said this, and I know they think it's somewhat disparaging, but it's like, if you have a rat container and you pile the rats on top of each other, eventually they'll start killing each other for resources or dominance or just over territory, and it plays out in humans.
No, it's actually the opposite in the rats. They did it out of pleasure. They turned into transvestite vampires, basically cannibals. They would eat each other. Just why not?
Yeah.
It wasn't because of resources, actually. It's because they found that in the studies, the more resources they had, the more chance they'd become homosexual cannibals. And they'd just spend all day grooming themselves, like the prince on The Beautiful Ones. That's where that term comes from, The Beautiful Ones. When you get resources, you just spend your time becoming like an Instagram fot.
Yeah.
And when you spend all your time on beauty, it just turned into... That's what I thought their study showed.
Well, but I mean, I think it still translates, though, because, you know, a lot of people also make the point that, I mean, look at my situation. I grew up in these inner city schools. My family had more money than most of the kids I went to school with, but they all had better sneakers, better material things. They didn't have a better house. I mean, I had a house. They were in the projects. But I feel like there is that sort of projection of wealth where it's like, you know, they're wasting money on shiny things, and they do have some resources. It's just misallocated. But you know, even in America, like, even our poorest are doing pretty well. So I think it does kind of transfer to that way, where they are kind of decadent and killing each other. You know, you look at like gang situations, and it's like you got to kill someone just to get into one. Like, you know, that almost makes it into like sport or something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 40% hopeful of Trump. I think you're going to find out who the real Trump is within 4 weeks. I think it's going to be undeniable. Like, by Christmas, it's going to be undeniable, because I know it sounds like I'm a bit over the top, but I think Trump's got to do the mass arrest. I get that just before, 8 months before the election, you just cool everything down. I get it.
Yeah.
He's not going to do anything drastic this year, because he doesn't want to affect the vote. He doesn't want to swing too hard on one issue.
You know, but I'll tell you what, even in the last week, I think you've seen a shift, and maybe it's with aggravation, and I think it's even with playing it safe, because I've seen him talk more and more about, you know, the masks. They can't get it together if they work or if they don't, or how much they work, and then they're browbeating people about it. And like, I was even really glad during the 60 Minutes interview where he called out the reporter, because remember, I did the one video about the debate, and I said no one's talking about anything that concerns anyone. Like, it's all of this, well, how often do you wear a mask, and, you know, white supremacy and the climate, and it's very much these privileged elitist concerns where it's like,
if it turns into another Pizzagate where it turns out these people have got these laptops with all this nonsense on it, and nothing happens before Christmas again, I think it would be time to cut your losses with Trump.
yeah.
That's just my version. It would just be like, okay, this is exactly the same script.
Well, now see, and that's where I think you're right, where he's playing it safe, because I've heard as soon as he wins, he's firing Chris Wray, who sat on the laptop, firing Barr, firing a whole bunch of them, because it's again, it is on Trump, because these are the people he's appointing.
Yeah, and you're never going to get the opportunity again, because he says he wants to reopen America. You gotta do it, so you gotta do it whilst it's closed, then I guess, right?
That I don't know, because
Well,
we're
it's
not.
gonna, you do know because it's gonna get ultimate violent for him to clean up the mess that the Q people think is gonna like tidy up. It'd be a good idea to do that whilst things are
I
locked.
but we're not that locked down. Like that's the thing where it's again like
Well,
we're
you are. I don't agree with that because I was looking at CCTV of Times Square, and it looks like 28 days later to me. I
but
mean,
you
I know it's
but
one CCTV camera, but
but you also have to remember New York City is it's a very isolated situation where that is a place where a lot of people are afraid of it because people on top of people on top of people. Um, People have moved out of the area. I mean, my area has been
yeah, that's
swamped.
what I mean. So
That's what I'm saying.
let's say you were doing mass arrests and you were expecting sleeper cells to rise up to cause chaos. It's like, oh, go on then, because everything that's of significance is pretty much shut down. You're just going to go into these little towns,
But
which isn't.
what I'm saying is like the people in New York City, a lot of them either A live around me and commute to the city because we have a train that goes directly to it, or they have summer homes in where I live across the river. And, again, it's this area with a bunch of tiny little towns and all that. So they'll have summer places and then they would
So you're
stay.
just making my point more valid, though, aren't you? That if you are going to do this, you do it whilst it's locked down.
I mean, I think it's interesting no one has seen Hunter Biden since the stories broke. That's a point.
Hunter Biden's in on it, man. I don't buy the story that he handed his laptop on to be repaired. I think that's just absolutely ridiculous. I think Hunter's thrown his dad under the bus. He
I
wants to be exposed.
I don't know. I don't.
You do know, no one's that stupid to A, leave that on a laptop, full stop, and have it that easy to find and that obvious what the corruption was, to record the video evidence which would wipe out all your family. God knows what other videos on there, man.
No, I think it's one of these things where if you're just here's part of the
I
problem.
don't want to like
Hold on,
sympathize
let
with
me
Hunter.
make
I
this
think
point. Let me make this point real quick. I don't even take selfies. So I'm not the type of person to even be saying you wouldn't. You're right, I wouldn't, because I don't even do 5 steps before that even gets into illegal territory. Now I'm telling you, the cops every day bust drug dealers who post pictures of their stash on social networks.
yeah,
So
but not 25,000 fucking images, man. Do you know how long it's going to take just to go through that?
I mean,
It's not 4K either. It's like pretty low quality video and resolution. So you're looking at a whole week just to go through the images and videos.
yeah, but I don't understand the point with what about the time what does that matter?
Nobody is that reckless. Nobody.
I don't know.
That's somebody that wants to get caught, and then they hand the laptop over and just forget about it. I get it's
Oh,
a crap.
but I don't
And
I,
let me finish one
I
sec.
agree with
I
that
think what
though.
you'll find is I don't want to support Hunter, but Hunter is a victim.
Yeah, without a doubt. And that's what I was just going to say is a lot of times addicts will engage in behavior that does seem like they want to get caught. They want someone to stop them,
Yeah.
whether they realize it or not. Now, is
Didn't he
Hunter
make some kind of statement that he was going to throw his dad under the bus like a couple of months before this all happened?
maybe maybe. I mean, because the family does enable him, obviously. And they seem like they're doing it out of concern and everything like that. But I think it's a family of psychopaths. And I think it's if I were to look at it just, not knowing the details of the politics of it all, but just the sort of dynamics there, you probably
The only other place where I could be wrong is that they're telling you the story about the laptop being handed over just to get around the fact that Trump doesn't have a warrant.
see that I
If
would
you don't
agree
have a
with.
warrant, right, you can't show anyone that material. You can't let the press touch it because it's technically hacked. But if you didn't get a warrant and he just handed it in, that means you can tell the public what's on that laptop and the press can look at it. And the press can tell you what's on it. But
Yes
if
and
that had been
no.
If that had been hacked, because that's the excuse Dorsey was using, and Dorsey's kind of correct. But it turns out that laptop was handed in, so
Yeah.
it's that it kind of just seems a little bit too perfect that you get around. Well, how did you get your hands on this thing? I'm not buying that he handed it into this flipping repair place, and then the lawyers sent these emails going, "Yeah, can we have it back?" And he freaked out.
Well, no, I think there's see, I've heard weird things about that, and that's again one of these issues where it's I don't have the time to be worried about where did it come from. What does it matter where it came from? That's see, but that's the route they can go where they
Because
can say,
you asked,
well, the
where's Hunter?
Russians, the Russians. But where the laptop's old. It's not now I'll tell you the stories that are more
You've got
I'm more
another one now,
suspicious
apparently, as
about.
well.
No, well now they apparently have this daughter's diary. And
Yeah,
and
which
here's
he left on purpose.
and that's the thing. Here's the point I was going to make is I think the older generation of this family, Biden, the brothers, whatever, I think they're psychopaths. And I think the kids are victims of this. And I think they're roped into this and telling themselves, well, as long as I'm getting $1 million, let me just fire up this crack pipe and, take this flight. And the daughter with all this. I think that like you said, I really think Hunter is the victim in this. And the daughter, too, obviously. And I do think their actions are basically saying, just stop it. Just stop this ride I'm on.
But no, you're missing the big picture, because if you look at England's history, no matter how you look at it, it's based on a royal establishment. And the reason we have a royal establishment is because of incest, family murder. Like, to become king, it's because the king's son killed the king, right? And then killed his brothers. It usually goes down that route where you wipe everybody out until you're the throne sitter. And I don't see the Biden family being different to that. Maybe he's just wiping his dad out so he gets whatever he sees he's owed.
I don't know. Because if
You do know, that that's how these elite families tend to operate. The reason the king is the king
yeah,
is because he wiped every other fucker out.
yeah, I get that, but it's the reality of the situation, and Hunter's admitted this, is he wouldn't have any of these positions would it not be for Joe. So
No, I'm with you on that.
So I don't
The reason
see.
they do, the reason the laptop has this material is because it's psychotic, and the reason he handed it in is because he's psychotic and wants to wipe out half his family.
Yeah, but I don't see Hunter winding up on some sort of throne at the end of it. That's where we disagree.
Well, yeah, I think he will, because if the stress wipes his dad out, he'll get all the inheritance, won't he? Because it's next.
Yeah,
Just get rid
but
of
that's
get rid of the dad.
but that's a again, if you're a greedy psychopath, I guess. But that's like, oh well, I'll have $10 million
Why are you saying that?
instead
Like, he
of
might not be.
because I'm just saying, and at some point it's like, oh well, I'll have $200 million instead of $100 million, and it's like,
That's
oh,
exactly it. Yeah.
but it's like, okay, so you're just gonna smoke more crack and
Well,
like
no, 'cause
I
you're
do
still not getting what I don't think I'm explaining what a psychopath is. It's the same as the mafia family. It's not just the money. It's the operation's still going to continue. The royal family operation's still going to continue. You still got all the deals. You still got all the contacts. You're now Scarface.
But they're not. They don't. I mean, look at Hillary Clinton's contacts dried up a lot after she was out of the system. I mean, she still has her ties into the system, but the contacts the system gave her are no longer there. Like, the Clinton Foundation donations are not going through the roof anymore. So, like I said, Joe Biden is the bridge. I don't think you're going to have Nancy Pelosi looking to appoint Hunter Biden to a position in anything. That's what I'm saying. Like, the establishment.
No, I don't think I'll appoint him to any position.
So I don't.
Other than he'll be some kind of underground mafia boss. I don't think he'll be like a political candidate. But he'll be a candidate for the next Godfather role.
I don't. Hunter is like your guy that goes and picks up the drop and leaves the bag of money, and vice, like he's an errand
Yes,
runner.
he's got a lot of useful information. He'd be a great snitch.
Yeah, but I don't know. I just
He's
don't.
got a lot of dirt he can use.
The I mean, I could see it from that perspective. Like, yeah, he'd probably cut deals and snitch on people in order to save his own skin. But that is, again, like, far off from this sort of Machiavellian royal, let me take down the king so that I can sit on the throne picture that you paint.
Well, why not? I don't think Biden really thinks he can win the presidency either, you know?
Huh?
I don't think Biden's there for a political candidate, to be honest.
No. No, not at all. I mean, I've almost sort of wondered ever since he was, deemed the front runner, if they're just throwing the election.
And the firm that he reports to appears to be China.
Yeah. I mean,
China seems to be pissed off with Biden because he's such a joke. They're like, why the fuck are you putting this guy up against Trump? Are you like, they haven't been in the picture for the last 4 years, and they're like, we just turned on the TV. You put who up against Trump? Is that no? I think what you're really seeing. I'm trying to explain this because I'm a little bit ill today. Let me start from the beginning. So I think the grand plan is maybe Trump set up China, like not Trump, but the good side of America. Perhaps they did do these deals with China, going, "Hey, you can run the Democratic Party. The Democrat Party are going to win, and China's going to be able to take over America." And they literally put Krusty the Clown up. And this really is a double cross of China. They really did double cross them. It could be that. It could be like a really great story that this is actually genius to double cross her. I'm not explaining this too well, but the idea that you'll say, right, well, we're the mafia, we can get the president you want in. But they had no intention of doing that. They just had to make it look like they were doing that with this election fraud and all this nonsense to make it look like they were trying to get Biden in. But really, there was never any chance of it happening. And they just took all the bribes, they took all the money, and they're like, yeah, of course, China, yeah. Oh, yeah, of course your AI systems will be running everything. Oh, of course, we'll have the social credit score over here. Of course, we're going to go communist. Of course, you're going to run the show. And then they just throw literally Krusty the Clown up and go, that's the candidate. And China are like, what the fuck? We wanted literally Satan, Lucifer, running against Trump, this elegant person that's fantastic, and instead they put this old creepy guy up, and China, and beginning of the year, figured it out, and they're just, what the fuck? And then he went with the COVID scam. And Bill Gates is obviously part of the Chinese mafia, and he's like, they put who up? We've been ratted out here. And it's a revenge attack on America for double crossing China. It could be that. I don't know if I've gone too far on that, but
I don't know. I
don't think anyone's that stupid to actually put Biden up and actually think it's worth.
Oh, I think they are. Without a doubt, I think they are. You gotta.
I think they had to put someone up there that just
because you're halfway right. You're halfway right, and with looking at it like it is a mafia, an enshrined mafia, a mafia that does not get questioned, and when you don't get questioned, you know what you don't need to be? Competent. And that's where I feel like you and me have these disagreements, is because you think these people are far more competent than I do. Nancy Pelosi is in her 80s. Chuck Schumer is in his 80s. Again, you're right from the stand of these people are like royalty. That's why they're there when they should be in nursing homes. So it's not, I mean, even Nancy Pelosi, she's controlled the Democrat Party funding for forever. She doesn't need to do anything. She just needs to be there. And that's part of it, where there's an incompetence and an arrogance. So in a lot of ways, it's like, I don't think things need to be, you don't need to go down to this, well, they're evil and they're double crossing and they're this and that and because you're giving them way too much credit. Like,
So why are the Chinese threatening Biden so hard with this stuff then? What's their motive?
Well, I don't know what Chinese threat you're talking about.
Well, all these leaks are coming out on GTV, a Chinese YouTube site, and it's one YouTuber. And at the beginning of the video, the Chinese put this threat out to the Democratic Party going, you double-crossed us. What the fuck is Biden? Like, what the fuck? Get Biden out of the campaign now, or we keep releasing more damaging stuff. I thought that was what they were saying. I could have that wrong.
I
I thought the Chinese guy predicted the leaks 2 weeks before the leaks happened, right?
yeah.
And his reason that he knew was because the Chinese CCP felt like they'd been double crossed by the Democrat Party, that Biden was so out of touch. They were like, what? How's that going to run against Trump? Like, are you guys insane?
But but I feel like you're making my point then. China, what? China, their motive is what? They want Trump out of office, right? They want to take over America.
Why are Chinese releasing these videos? What are the threats that are before the leaks? That's why you leak, right?
Well, it could be they don't think Biden can take on Trump. They want the leaks to come out, him to step down and say, okay, Kamala's the front runner.
Or Clinton, yeah, or Hillary.
Yeah, just swap. They want him swapped out real quick to say, okay, there's a family matter. You know, obviously there's
actor, like, but get someone out of Hollywood, like produce that Hollywood Brad Pitt that can actually run against.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I see what you're saying there with, you know, China trying to take Biden out and feeling like they're double crossed because they don't feel. I mean, I don't know what the actual deals are made between. It could, here's something, it could, for all we know, you know, Biden has changed his positions on so many things, especially the fracking issue and stuff like that.
Biden doesn't even know who he's running against, Jamie.
But no, here's what I'm saying is,
what day it is. It's just in a basement.
Here's what I'm saying. When the energy issue is presented to Americans, it's always through the framing of American jobs being energy independent. But what was happening when we weren't energy independent? Well, that's when you had these other countries supplying us energy. That's why you can do energy deals with Burisma and, you know, everyone else. So, I mean, China could be feeling backstabbed just off Biden saying, okay, I won't ban fracking, because China could know, well, if the U.S. doesn't do fracking, we'll export energy through this and that. So, I mean, again, it could be something that we've all heard and thought nothing of, that they could be viewing as the double cross, because it's just Biden changed. Hold on, let me finish. Biden changed his position. Now, when China calls up and they're like, Biden, what's going on? You told us you were going to stop this, do that, and do the next thing. And he's like, oh, well, you know, it's an election, this and that, you know, corn pop, onomatopoeia, whatever he bet. And they're probably like, this guy's fucking incompetent. Like, this is worse than him switching a position. Like, this guy is not there. We need him out of there. You know, and in some ways, I guess you could almost see maybe China double-crossed the Democrats. Maybe they said they were backing Biden. Biden turned out to be such a train wreck that they're like, fuck, we'll crash this train if we can salvage what comes after. Like, because you're about to hand this to Trump.
Why else? There's no other reason why. If I had damaging evidence on you, like 250,000 images of you, why wouldn't I just release the whole lot in one go? Why would I do a little bit every single day and it gets more and more damaging? It's obvious there's a ransom that hasn't been paid.
I don't know. I feel like...
No, you do know.
No.
Why
hold
would
on.
you not
because the obvious answer...
hang on.
There's an obvious answer.
Hang on. Jamie, stop. The reason you do it, and you know this, the reason you do it in small amounts and it gets more and more and more damaging is because it's a threat. Each threat gets more and more serious.
No. There's a much simpler answer.
Go on, then.
It's the censoring of it.
Huh?
If it was all right, the whole issue with Congress and Twitter and the New York Post... I
can't hear a word you're saying. It's all breaking up.
The whole issue with Congress and Twitter and the New York Post...
No, I'm going to have to call you back. I can't hear anything.
Okay. It's... Yo. Hello? You
Yo,
there? You there?
is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing is, and this point was made about the Twitter censoring the New
Yeah,
York
it's the
Post
same.
thing. It's the way articles and stuff like that have a sort of critical mass. And that's why they're still trying to say, we want the New York Post. We'll
Jamie
unlock.
messed up. I can't hear. Bad.
I wish there was a pause button.
You there?
Yeah. Is it any
Right,
better?
work.
Any better?
Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, I think I just want to move on because I think if you're in denial that when you selectively release information which is damaging, that you do that because you don't have a motive. Like it's pretty
No,
obvious.
no. What I'm saying is with the way the media functions, and it's why there's the whole controversy about Twitter going to the New York Post and saying take down the
I
original
think that's
tweet.
China, though, isn't it? Really?
What's China?
The MSM that you talk of, like Facebook, YouTube, your
Maybe,
media.
maybe, but that's irrelevant to what I'm saying.
Okay.
It's it's the fact that if you had, let me put it like this, if you had everything in the first story and they censored that, well then you've blown everything in one shot. I mean, it's released slowly because it's like, okay, we released it the first time, they censored it. Now there's a controversy about this. Now people are paying attention. They're wondering what's going on. Now we slow drip them a little more, and then a little more, and then so that the cure. I mean, it's basically so you can't shut it all down just in one day in one shot. Then it's over. It's done in that way. It's same thing they did with Hillary, where it was okay, this week it's the abusers, next week it's Danny Williams or whatever the kid's name was, then it's this. It has to be persistent because the news cycle is 24 hours. You don't want it being a headline today and forgotten about tomorrow when you're 3 weeks out from an election. Like, I think there's a much simpler reason why there was the slow drip of it. And then, even like you said, it's how many thousands of photos? It's obviously going to. I mean, what would be the point of going to the American public and saying, "Oh, here's 2,500 images on Hunter Biden, and let's forget about it tomorrow"? Like
Well, no,
it
that's just ridiculous because you just put out the most damaging.
I don't know. I think it's far more better and strategic the way they do it.
Because they're saying that the next group of videos were going to be gore videos, didn't he?
We're gonna be what?
Gore related,
Maybe.
gory.
I mean, I've
Yeah,
heard that every time something comes out, you do hear Giuliani and other people saying, "Well, there's worse to come."
yeah. Apparently, what it is, according to the Chinese, I don't know if you heard, apparently he's in a dungeon with 11-year-old Chinese prostitutes and he beats the living shit out of them.
Yeah, I've heard it's like snuff film stuff.
Yeah.
Well, part of me wonders, and this could just be being hopeful, is maybe it's smarter to do it this way because what did we have after 2016? We had basically this whole lot of Hillary information going. I mean, you've practically made this point, and we've argued about it, is you had all of this stuff on Hillary come out, then Trump won, then what's happening to Hillary became a sort of forgotten about thing because everyone was like, well, we won, and the next thing you know, you're on the defensive because, well, Russians stole the election and this and that and everything else. So part of me wonders if maybe they're holding the really damning stuff back for after the election, so that way the American people are like, I don't care if his father was just running, you better take these people in. Like, it is not
Well, that's
enough
what
to
I said
just...
earlier. No, because I said if Trump is going to do that, he literally has 4 weeks from next week to get that done, or you're going to be just shut down until God knows when. Because you want to do that kind of operation. To be fair, if I was to do that operation, I'd want the country as locked down as it could be.
See,
I don't want sleeper cells. Hang on, I don't want sleeper cells shooting up malls.
because now that you now that you mention it, now I don't know if I heard that this was a conversation between the Chinese and whoever, but I did at one point hear there was a conversation where, and maybe it was even Bobolinsky or whoever this one guy is, maybe there's been several, but I know people have gone to Joe Biden and basically just been like, Joe, listen, you need to stop, you need to just step aside because what's going to happen next is not going to be good. And he just keeps going. Like, even the Bobolinsky guy said, he came out and he said, I just wanted my family's name cleared. Now, if that's true or not, or if, there's other motives, that I won't bother to speculate on. But he even said, I called up the Bidens. I said, I want you to retract this and that. Don't be lumping my name in with Russian whatever. And they just said, no. This is our party line, basically. We're dismissing it as Russian disinfo, and we don't give a fuck if people are looking at you like a traitor. And that's why he went public. But I heard before, though, that there were conversations with Biden about that before, where they said, Biden, listen, if you don't step out and, the stuff on Hunter is going to come out. And he just kept pressing forward, which is, again, that sort of incompetent arrogance where he's like, whatever, I've gotten away with this much so far. What makes you think I can't keep on this winning streak?
Because if Trump went a bit Hitler mode, he could allow, so he knows the riots are coming, just let them come out and riot and actually this time say, not this time.
Yeah.
I know it's going to look bloody, but maybe start actually shooting back at these
No,
rioters.
I've heard, I think it was an interview with Jeanine Pirro or someone.
And again, when you do this kind of operation, it might be a good idea that America's locked down. So the only people that are going to get collateral damage are just rioters, Antifa, BLM.
Well, and that's
because Trump's not going to be worried about his people because they're pretty much locked and loaded anyway.
Yeah, well, and that's
So
the thing. People were saying he that's why he wasn't using the Insurrection Act before, because he feels like it's going to be needed.
That's what I mean. If he's going to do this, I really feel like it's got to be done before Christmas. And if it's not done before Christmas, it's never going to happen. There'll never be a better opportunity to really clean up the house.
Yeah.
If he says that's what he's going to do, drain the swamp, I can't see it happening after Christmas. Not yet. Well, maybe it could happen, but things would have to be really bad in America. It'd have to be like Escape from New York kind of thing. And I've got a feeling we're going to get to Christmas and it's going to be very tame, very mild, and not much is going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder.
And that Biden laptop will just get memory hold, like every other thing that got memory hold.
I wonder what's going to come of the COVID narrative around then, because obviously you can tell they're looking to switch it over from being the flu to the other. But like I said,
I admit Trump is our last hope, because everything is on COVID. That Trump opens up, because if Trump doesn't open up, we're all gone.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. His rhetoric in the past couple weeks has really been we need herd immunity. We can't be hiding, this and that. Do the masks work? Do they don't? It's your choice, whatever. And I really like that he isn't just sort of cowering to the experts anymore. And I mean, that's why I said this whole thing about, these polls being like, well, people's number one concern is COVID. And it's like, okay, but in which direction? Like, are they done with it and just done and over, or are they hiding and afraid? And the polling shows it's practically inverted, where it's like 80% of Democrat men are terrified of COVID, only 20% of Republicans are. And it's like, when I look at things like that, I'm like, that's where this is disturbing, because who's turned the science stuff into partisan?
Because unfortunately, some people want to believe it, and the reason they want to believe it is, take my parents for example. It fits in very well with my mum and dad, because they've now got an excuse not to be parents, right? because I don't want to die, Paul. I can't see because I don't want to die. I'm just going to lock myself in my £1 million house and just wait until I die. Like, it's an excuse to, A, not go to work because you're still going to get paid pretty much the same. I don't know what the rules are in America, unfortunately, but
Yeah,
I imagine a lot of people can just sit on their backside, and now they've got an excuse because it's not because they're lazy, it's because everything's shut down, right?
well, not as much anymore, and that's the thing is there's been fights over the new stimulus bill because everything is sort of running out of money to keep everyone in lockdown and hiding and the extra unemployment and all that, which is why I think that's one of the things. If Trump
Well, no,
went,
because Trump did pay that very well. This stimulus money is going to be the same as the UK. Hopefully, what it's going to do is cause deflation.
well, and I think also it's going
So
to be. I think
products are just going to. It's just going to be harder to sell stuff.
when I
So
think it
products
factors into your idea of a quiet Christmas, because I think Trump will try to push through money and be like, the holidays are coming, we need the economy going, we need the extra stimulus money out there. But also the numbers are showing the economy is coming back. The more places are reopening and stuff. Like, I don't think that they can keep beating that drum. I think it's ran its course. I hope, at least.
He needs to shut down Silicon Valley before Christmas, and I hope that happens. I think he's got the ammunition to do it. Get rid of Facebook, get rid of YouTube, and basically start getting the media shitting themselves and go like, okay, CNN, you haven't been as bad as YouTube and Facebook, but like you're on just look where Jack Dorsey is right now. He's in an orange jumpsuit. I'm just saying.
You know what?
You haven't been as bad as Jack Dorsey, but you need to clean up now.
You know what we really need? Remember during Obama's administration, there used to be a ban on propagandizing American citizens. And I don't know if they needed to renew it or something, but they ended up not. So it basically became legal to propagandize American citizens.
Yeah.
And
we always had the problem that Obama's taken our free speech. It's like all the free speech, unfortunately, got lost massively under Trump.
Yeah. Well,
okay,
see, and that's
did it,
and that's the thing people forget about is generally the things that most presidents do, you don't end up seeing the fruits of during their administration. That's why the whole fake news thing, I mean, fake news is really just a colloquial term for propaganda. I mean, because, and you have people that have been making this point. Actually, a lot of leftists have been making this point, and there's a handful of them that I really enjoy watching lately, like Jimmy Dore, where they point out, if you turn on one of these news media shows, well, what do you really have? Well, you have someone like George Stephanopoulos, who is a communications director for the Clinton, who's then interviewing someone like John Brennan, who is a former CIA head. You have Anderson Cooper, who is in the CIA, who's interviewing James Comey, who's the FBI. And I mean, these news shows are it's like it is the military-industrial complex, just wrapped in a veneer of news and chyrons and all of this stuff. When if you're looking at who these people are, who they're tied into, it's the establishment. It's not journalists. They're former intelligence agencies, former White House staff. I have all these tabs opened up on my computer. I was going to do this video basically going through how we do have at this point, it is a left-wing military-industrial fascist state between Silicon Valley, Obama and them working at Netflix now, the ties in the media industry. Like, the left is the only side politically, and, there's plenty of, the whole Bush administration is backing Joe Biden. So it's not like it is a partisan thing, really. But they're in these positions where it's like they hold all the levers of power, and they are now consolidating it into one where the social networks, the government, the military, it's all very much just joined into this one giant glob that people call the deep state. But it's it's the military industrial complex. Like, that's it at the very core of it. It is just disinfo operations and, you know, mind control operations and domestic terror operations. And like, you know, the one that, like, the stories that really are interesting to me is the kidnapping attempt on Governor Whitmer, where I guess 2 of the 4 involved were FBI.
So it was all FBI.
Basically,
FBI found a couple of retards.
yeah. And, you know, of course, they're shown with anarchist flags behind them, but, you know, the media calls them Trump supporters. And then this other thing where you had Iran and Russia or some other country sending, like, spoofed emails saying they were the Proud Boys. And I don't know if that's just Trump's administration cutting them off at the pass, saying, "Oh, well, actually, the Russians were influencing
Well, no,
it."
because as soon as they say they're Iranian emails, you know they're full of shit straight away, or Russian emails. Because anyone who knows anything knows you've got no way of knowing where that email came from. Like, I only know basic computer
Yeah.
engineering, but yeah, the whole point of doing that kind of operation is that no one knows where.
Well, and
you
I
are.
was going to say, and that's the thing, if you can spoof it for one location, you can spoof it to another. So,
Yeah, that's the whole point of doing it. Yeah.
well, and that's why I said I sort of wonder if it's them trying to cut them off at the pass and be like, well, let's put out our Russian influence the election story. Like, you know, it's just, like I said, final countdown. I do think Trump's going to win, but I think it's going to be.
Yeah, and you don't usually target a country; you just send it wherever. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter. The chances it would be Russia or Iran are just just use basically a proxy server. Just
Yeah.
proxy. Just send your signal, bounce it somewhere else. To the point where you'd probably even buy they tend to just buy Russian computers and Russian keyboards and Russian mouse. So that code is on your email.
Yeah.
You've got no way of knowing where that came
But
from.
I'm interested. What's going on in the UK? Are you guys just police state forever
I'm glad
now,
you got
or
to that. Are you ready for a long one?
yeah?
Jamie, grab yourself a cup of tea. Grab yourself a beer. This is a long one. It's not really the UK you've got to be looking at. It's the whole of Europe, man.
All right. Well,
It's not.
I am going to run and grab a drink. So just give me one
Grab a
second.
drink.
You can just riff for a second.
I'll play some guitar. Yeah. Right.
All right. Now a word from our sponsor,
Okay.
Bang Energy Drink. Promo code. Fuck you. All right. So what's going on in the UK? Oh no. Where'd Paul go? He vanished. What did I do? This shit is obnoxious. All right. That's crazy looking. Maybe I should try calling him.